Hello and welcome to Dining with Death. This episode is on our playlist, Dining with the Departed, where we talk about famous and infamous people who have passed on. We discuss their careers, their lives, what they're famous for, and we talk about their favorite foods. I'm Stacey Lee. Let's begin. Earl Simmons was born on December 18, 1970 in Mount Vernon, New York, to Arnett Simmons and Joe Barker. His mother was only 19 and already had a 2-year-old. His father was a watercolor artist who sold paintings at local markets and fairs, and his father moved out of his life very early on. Simmons was not a healthy kid. He had severe bronchial asthma, and there were times in his life where his mother took him to the emergency room almost every night because he was waking up unable to breathe. His mother raised him as a Jehovah's Witness, but Simmons states he quickly became disillusioned with the religion and left it completely after he was hit by a drunk driver while crossing a street, and his mother rejected a large insurance settlement, a settlement that he was rightly entitled to because she said it was against her religion to accept it. Simmons was beaten throughout his childhood by both his mother and her various boyfriends. These beatings were so severe that on numerous occasions he lost teeth and was often seen bruised and cut. When Simmons was 5 years old, his family moved into public housing in Yonkers, New York. I read a lot of accounts of Earl Simmons, DMX, as a child, acting out in school. And it's like, well, of course he did. I mean, he was being severely abused at home, so it's no surprise that he had trouble in school. He reports that his own aunt got him drunk on vodka when he was only 7 years old. He was first jailed at a very early age for stealing food from a local market. He reports being locked in his room for almost an entire summer, being let out by his mother only for trips to the bathroom. At the end of 5th grade, only 10 years old, Simmons was expelled and sent to the Julia Dykeman Andrus Children's Home. His mother told him they were just visiting the home, but then when they were there, she left him. This is the betrayal and the lie that Simmons reports as a turning point in his relationship with his mother. Just a few months later, he was arrested for arson when he tried to burn down the school, nearly killing the boy who was helping him. He was then kicked out of the school and was living on the streets by age 14. He reports sleeping in Salvation Army clothing bins and befriending stray dogs. That's a tough start to life. On this channel, we talk about a lot of people who have tough starts in life. And one of the things that fascinates me, and part of the reason that I am so interested in these kinds of things, is some of those people become serial killers, and some of those people become very famous rappers and musicians. Why? Who knows? That's why we talk about it, right? No, I'm not a big fan of the pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. You know, in order to do that, you have to have boots and you have to have bootstraps. And some of us don't have either. His mother picked him up off the streets and sent him to another group home. During his stay in this home, he befriended other kids there and they bonded over their love of hip-hop music. Simmons began to write his own music and lyrics. When he was released from the group home, he met Reddy Ron, a local rapper, who was impressed with Simmons' beatboxing skills, and he partnered with the young man. Simmons chose the name DMX, which came from the Oberheim DMX drum machine that he used to make beats while he was in the boys' home. Later in his career, others would also say it stood for Dark Man X. DMX went to Yonkers High School and was one of the fastest on the track and field varsity team, but his attendance and his grades always suffered, and he continued to engage in acts of crime, some of them very serious, like robbery, purse snatching, and even carjacking. In 1988, after several stints in jail, 18-year-old DMX started rapping with K-Solo. He began producing and selling his own mixtapes where he rapped over instrumental parts of other songs. He sold those mixtapes on street corners, and soon he had a really large fan base all over New York. Back in my day, I'm so old, you could do things like sell a mixtape or play a lot of live shows and get a really good following. It's really tough to do that these days, but you know, now you have YouTube, and you have Instagram, and you have TikTok, and that's how a lot of people are getting noticed. That's not really what destroyed the live music scene and upcoming artists, in my opinion, though. In my opinion, it was more kind of the record companies picking and choosing and forming people in, to what they wanted them to be. And also, I'm just going to say it. The TV talent shows, they didn't do anything to help that. You know, it used to be you just got in a van, you drove around, you played some shows, you made some mixtapes, and everything's changed now, you know. It's almost like things change. Yes, I'm old, but I'm not really into complaining about the way things used to be. You know, change happens. I'm just saying it's different now. In 1991, The Source wrote a piece on unsigned rappers and featured DMX as one of the best. In 1992, Columbia Records signed DMX to its rap label, Rough House Records, which released his debut single, Born Loser. His second single, Make a Move, was released in 1994. In 1995, he made a guest appearance on the underground track Time to Build, along Jay-Z, Ja Rule, and Mike Geronimo. From 1996 to 2000, DMX spends his time writing and recording tracks for his debut album and also appearing on singles with Mace, LOX, and LL Cool J. These guest spots earned him a lot of buzz and increased his fan base. In February 1998, he released his debut major label single, Get At Me Dog, with Def Jam Recordings, and the single went gold. He then released his first full-length album, It's Dark and Hell is Hot, which included his hit, Rough Riders Anthem. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart and sold over 5 million copies. He released his second album, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood, in 1998, and it debuted at #1 as well and went multi-platinum. A year later, he released his third and best-selling album, And Then There Was X. It also debuted at #1 and featured the song Party Up, which most people called Up in Here. And now we're all singing that song in our heads. Up in Here became his first top 10 hit and was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Rap Solo Performance at the 2001 Grammy Awards. The album was certified 6 times platinum and nominated for Best Rap Album in 2001. DMX released The Great Depression in October 2001 and then Grand Champ, making him the only musical artist in history to release 5 consecutive albums. Okay, that was news to me. That is a really cool fact about DMX. He is the only artist, now you think of all of the artists that have had #1 hits and stuff, to have 5 consecutive albums debut at #1. That's major, major. The other thing that's cool about that is that that was his entire catalog. So every album that he released for 5 consecutive albums went to #1. That's incredible. DMX then informed the public that he planned to retire and that Grand Champ would be his final album. He did in fact take a break, but in 2006, Columbia Records signed him to a new deal and he released Year of the Dog. That album missed the #1 spot by only a few hundred copies. Def Jam then released a compilation of his greatest hits in 2008 and another compilation called The Best of DMX in 2011. In 2008, DMX decided to pursue preaching, and he completed a gospel music album, but stated that now he was dedicated to the Bible and kind of done with the music industry. He then gets into kind of a messy situation with some collaborators and has a falling out with them. He releases as a solo artist the song Blood Red in 2016. Then he signed a new deal with Def Jam in 2019. He never quite had the success that he had earlier in his career. Throughout his life, DMX fathered 15 children with 9 different women. He was also married for 11 years to his childhood friend, Earl Simmons. He had feuds with other rappers like Ja Rule, but they eventually made peace. Even after he gets famous and, emerges as a public figure, DMX is still involved in crime from time to time, robberies and carjackings, and, it was just part of his life. In 1999, police executed a search warrant at his home, and DMX was arrested on weapons charges. He made a deal to do a public service announcement for an animal rights group after he was accused of mistreating some of his pit bulls. And then he served some time in jail for marijuana possession, disorderly conduct, and excessive speeding. In July of 2017, DMX was charged with tax fraud, and he was jailed in 2017. He went to rehab as part of his agreement, but he left before he was finishing, and this resulted in him getting sent back to prison for a year. He was released in January of 2019. Many people close to DMX believe he had bipolar disorder, and that was worsened by his drug use. DMX himself reported that he had been given crack cocaine as a child, and he had struggled with that addiction his entire life. This was not a good combination with his severe asthma, and it made his health struggles even worse. In 2016, he actually overdosed but did recover from that OD. On April 2nd, 2021, around 11 p.m., DMX was rushed to White Plains Hospital after people at his home called 911. It was determined that he had suffered a heart attack resulting from possible drug overdose. The next day, his attorney confirmed he was in a coma and on life support. That night, he suffered cerebral hypoxia, deprivation of oxygen to the brain, and this resulted in a vegetative state with no brain activity. He was pronounced dead on April 9th, 2021 at age 50. Friends remember DMX as a fun-loving, complicated guy who loved to party and loved hip-hop and rap music even more. They say he wore his heart on his sleeve and his struggles took a toll on him. We all agree that DMX had a major impact on the hip-hop world with his unique style and his rough-sounding delivery. I did a lot of reading about DMX while I was getting ready to bring this episode to you guys. He just passed a few days ago, and it seems he really loved crab legs, he loved Mexican food, but I found a story about him that was really kind of touching, and so that's what I decided to focus on today. It seems that when he was released from prison not too long ago, he wanted to stop at iHop on his way home. Now, prison food is notoriously terrible, and so there are a lot of stories about when people get released, the first thing they want to do is go get some decent food. But when he went to iHop, after he ate his meal, he was so grateful to the short order cooks that had prepared it for him. He actually went back into the kitchen and spent some time with them. It said he even whipped up an omelet, he signed autographs for people and took photos. And I just thought that was kind of a really telling look inside of who he was as a person. He loved his fans, and he was a complicated guy, but he really did seem to have a good heart. And so I'm going to remember him by doing a little spread of iHop food in honor of DMX right now. Well, in honor of DMX and that story that I loved, I've got an iHop feast here, which I'm sure tasted like manna from heaven after prison food. I've got the iconic iHop short stack here. They do make some good pancakes. And then I got a little breakfast sandwich. It's got, let's look. It's got ham and egg, and it looks like some cheddar cheese as well. The bread's nice and toasted. Looks like it might be kind of a sourdough. And then we've got hash browns, which are my favorite. I'll spare you watching me dump ketchup all over them. Yeah, I know, I like ketchup on them. And these little sausage links. So let's give this a taste. Gotta have butter on those pancakes, right? And I'm gonna use the iHop syrup. It's actually really good syrup. Let's taste this. That's a big bite. Those are legit pancakes. And they got a little bit of a crust on the outside. They're kind of dense, but still light enough. They've got kind of a almost artificial buttermilk flavor, but they're very good. Let's taste this little breakfast sandwich. That needs a little mayo or something. And there's some hot sauce. Ham's a little tough to chew. Bread's a little tough, but it's not bad. Let's try these hash browns. They're very crispy. Those are really good hash browns. Yeah, those are nice and crisp. The potato is really soft. They're salty. Those are good. Little sausage link. That's not a bad little sausage link, I gotta say. Kind of sweet. The casing's crisp on the outside. Very classic American breakfast sausage. Very classic American hash browns. This is a nice little sampling of some of the things that iHop has to offer. Good old iHop. It's open 24/7. It's always open for us when we need it. And, you know, it was the site of this really heartwarming little story about DMX, a really talented guy who's gone way too soon. Thank you for joining me today on Dining with Death, Dining with the Departed. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Stay safe and be kind to each other. And I'll see you next time on Dining with Death.